So,
Hi.
what were you doing over there, Dena? What you been doing in there?
I just been feeding into your energy, and we're red.
You jerk. I'm gonna go change clothes.
I still got it. I still got it.
Yes, you do. You little twerp.
Thank you.
It's really funny. And it's not the first time she's done this to me, y'all. It is not.
I just go with the flow of the
That's what you get when you work with an intuitive, psychic life
There
coach.
we go. Yep.
So funny.
Mm-hmm. Right?
It's good to see you. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yay! I'm very good. I'm very good. We have a topic today that's going to go maybe a little deep, but we'll do our best to try to keep it light, right?
Yeah, we'll keep it light. We don't have to be deep all the time.
We'll keep it light. Yes. Yeah. Oh, but before we dive into our topic, I just wanted to say to everyone very quickly, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate y'all so much. And if you are following and listening to the podcast randomly here and there, it means so much if you would subscribe to the channel. With that, you also get our weekly Life in the New Normal Cafe, vegan, gluten-free, ridiculously silly videos, y'all. We teach you a new recipe every week. Coach Dena leads the recipe from Italy, and I do my very darndest to follow along here in Charleston, South Carolina. And it's idiocy, y'all. It's just fun, and we try to do our best to make it fun for y'all, to have some healthy recipes, that you might not have otherwise tried. So we appreciate that. And we got new things coming down the pipe for you too. Dena and I have talked about implementing a few new things, different video content to try, little short things that could be very helpful to y'all, and we'll let you know when we're ready to release that. But that is coming, so there's lots more coming down the pipe, and you're going to get the benefits of that if you subscribe.
Yes. Yes, please subscribe.
Yes. So, okay, Dena, are we ready to dive in?
Tell me what we're diving into.
Today we are diving into today's topic is, what price would you pay for your peace?
Ooh, that's a good one.
And the reason I wanted to talk about this one is because I saw a friend of mine post about how nobody ever talks about the loneliness that occurs when you start to do this type of work on yourself, and when you work to better yourself, and how that automatically starts separating you in a sense from people that maybe you used to spend a lot of time with, that now you're not feeling you resonate in the same way. So like in our case, we stopped drinking, right? That automatically makes it harder for us to hang out then with all the party people who are drinking all the time. And that used to be who we are. No judgment, but that's not where we want to be now. So then we start to find ourselves naturally separating and going a different route. It doesn't just have to be with the drinking. It could be with the veganism. It could be spirituality and the things that you find that you'll allow in your life now, or you want in your life now, that maybe people, it just doesn't resonate in the same way. And
it also could be sexual promiscuity. It also could be not looking for deeper things.
Don't even go there.
You know what I mean? Oh, I'm going.
Woo!
So I'm just saying, in this sense, is protecting your peace for everyone looks a little different, and I think it's important when we first, for anyone to know, when you first start going down a healing journey, a spiritual journey, whatever it is, I think that it's important to be a little cautious until you get your footing and until you know what direction you're going in.
Sure.
And I think that that's what happens to people, is that they don't know what to do, so they do nothing. And then they're like, well, I'm protecting my peace. Well, it's like, well, which peace are you protecting? And from who?
Right.
So it's like, I think it's so important to remember that once we're solid in the certain drinking or non-drinking, I know specifically that there are things that are just a hard no for me, because I just don't enjoy being around it. Like, we'll just say a bunch of people drinking, meaning like there's nothing fun for me sitting around with a bunch of people getting hammered, being very silly. I just don't get the same out of it that I used to. I can be silly and all of that stuff, but I find myself on a different level, meaning when you're sober, right? And
well, it's easy to say that in the context of like choosing to go out to a bar versus not, but what if it's within your own family and your family drinks?
oh gosh, wow.
Right.
Then
That
you're
makes
just
it a
gonna
little more
have to,
challenging. So
yeah,
it
that's
just
you're just
becomes,
gonna have to
yeah,
keep up with them.
right. So
Meaning
because
let them
I
be them and
exactly
then just be like, hey, you're so silly. Or what I always do is pull out the camera and I like to take proof and
document.
blackmail photos. And
That's
then I'm like,
hilarious.
$5 and I won't post this. $10 and I won't post this. Why not?
Oh man,
Have
that's
fun
so
with it.
funny. Yeah, that's pretty funny.
You
No, I
know?
just find that
So,
I remove myself at different points now where maybe I wouldn't have in the past. It'll just be like,
mm-hmm.
okay, and that's my cue to go to bed. When it's hit
Yeah.
a certain point or whatever. But the sexual promiscuity, I did not even think about. Thanks for bringing that up because
You're welcome.
that
Because
is a
that can
whole different
disrupt
thing.
your peace. Because what we're learning now, right, is that not to get graphic, but they say when you allow somebody inside of you, they leave their DNA behind. And then
Ew, I'm a
you're,
lesbian.
well,
Nobody's leaving their
I,
DNA inside me.
oh, they are tongue swapping, tonsil hockey, whatever that may be. But they say that
That's
energetically,
funny.
people leave their stuff
Ew,
behind.
ew, ew, ew.
Well,
How
I
much
mean,
DNA do you
so
have in you, Dena?
well, I wish I had about 9 inches of it. And if you want to get specific, I wish it was chocolate
Ah.
DNA.
Oh, girl. Well,
Maybe
y'all heard
even
it
dark
here.
chocolate
Hey,
DNA.
listen, y'all heard it here. Let's hook this woman up. Let's get her some DNA.
Right? So I'm just saying, in the sense, is that
That's funny.
casual sex when you're older doesn't have the same meaning when you're younger.
Yeah,
And
totally.
because when you're younger, hit it and quit it is more easy.
Yep,
And
yep.
I don't know if you wear a condom if the DNA is still behind. I don't think so, but I'm just saying, when you're older and you're looking for more meaningful stuff or whatever, is because I know a lot of girls, I'm not one of them, that needs to be connected in order to have sex.
Right.
I'm a
Yeah,
hit it
yeah,
and
yeah,
quit
yeah.
it. I don't, for me, I can just compartmentalize, right? So
You were
I
one of
don't,
those girls that could have sex and just move on.
still
Ooh,
am.
really?
Yes, still
That's
am,
why
always
you
have
flirt
been.
so easily, I bet, too. See,
Easily. I
I'm
will flirt
so
with a rock.
not. Yeah, you will.
Yes, I will.
It'd probably
If
flirt
I,
back. You're so
yes,
cute.
thank you.
But yeah, no, I that's so funny. I'm the far opposite end of the spectrum. As we know, you
So
and I are
see,
very,
that's
very
got,
different,
yes, but
except
that's
for
got to
our
be
f***ing
hard.
tank tops. I even put on a different shirt and then decided to change at the last minute.
Woo!
What the? Girl, sometimes you freak me out. It's funny.
Love it.
Anyway, but
And
yes, it's true.
well, I think that it's so, it really is so interesting for me emotionally. I guess maybe because I was raised by my dad and brothers, that it's just, and I think also part of it, honestly, is the tism and the ADHD for me is that I'm like out of sight, out of mind. So
Hmm.
I just get on with
Yeah,
my day and I keep it
makes
moving. But
sense.
I think now what happens to me is I think I'll get more excited about the what if, and then it would be harder for me. So that I'm not willing to disrupt my peace for.
Right.
Meaning, like if I'm intimate with someone, I don't hit it, I can't hit it and quit it like I used to because that's not what I'm looking for. So then that would disrupt my peace that I'm in right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's
Mm-hmm.
something I'm not willing. And when your friend said before about it can be lonely, I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to say, I said it to my therapist once. I said, I said, it's lonely at the top, doctor. And he goes, imagine how I feel.
I
Oh my
love
God, that's
him. I don't even know him,
amazing.
and I love him.
So it's interesting because you don't know at what point you are in your healing journey of what's kind of on shaky ground, what's rocky. It's kind of like when you first quit drinking, right? We don't put ourselves in situations where we would be tempted at first. I
Right.
think the same happens when we're on this healing journey is like, am I strong enough to, subject my peace to this, or am I strong enough? And I would hope
Yeah.
going down the line that people are strong enough
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
other people don't determine whether or not their peace is, disturbed. But I think that protecting your peace
Right.
also means stop going through the same door, hoping for the different behavior when it's the same door, the different,
Right.
scenery or whatever. It's like one time my therapist said to me, when are you going to learn to start taking the side door instead of taking the front door and keep getting hit with a bucket of shit every time you go through the front door? Meaning it's like, I just keep going through the front door thinking the bucket of shit isn't going to be there. Instead, it never occurred to me to take the side door. So that I didn't get hit with the bucket of shit. So there are certain people I know that no matter what, they're going to throw a bucket of shit. Whether it's their negativity, whether it's their ho hum, whether it's they're always complaining about something, or whether I'm always the target of their jokes, or whether I'm always the butt of whatever. Because in my family, they make fun of the person, and you are the butt of the joke.
Yeah.
And I didn't learn until I was much older that that's not funny, and that's not peaceful to other people.
Yeah.
And so I think first it's really important for you to discover what your peace is, and it's also not everybody else's job to protect your peace. It's your own job. I'm going to still keep being who I am. You have to figure out how to not have your peace disturbed by your own internal work.
Right. And that was what took me the longest to learn is, if exactly, you keep putting yourself in these situations with these people that you're hoping are going to change. No, it's up to you to just take care of yourself and protect your peace. So
yeah, and I've also
it's
learned
challenging
to stop trying to go in with I'm not saying anyone else does that, but sometimes we feel like, well, I could lead by example and then maybe they'll get it. And I've also stopped going in with that hope too.
Oh, that's
because
a good point.
that also
because
disrupts
I would be
my
one
peace.
of those people that would do that,
And that
So-
can disrupt your peace
Yeah.
without you realizing it.
Right.
Because
right.
then we get disappointed, we have an
Yeah.
expectation, we have a hope, we have a...
That's
do you know
right.
what I mean? And so...
Yeah, everybody's
I
on
think,
their own path and their own learning journey, and
well,
they
and
gotta
that's the
figure it out.
scary... Yeah, and that's the scary thing, because we were never taught that no matter what, you have to do this alone. Meaning you're in your own head. You're in your own mind. Nobody's going to do it for you. We were taught that you meet someone and that's part of your happiness. And, whatever it may be, someone else was always a part of it. It was never... You are in charge of your happiness, protecting your peace, setting your boundaries. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. So let's talk about what protecting our peace looks like in the form
Okay.
of, I consider it to be almost like a detachment, right? It's sort of like not being affected by, it's the art of practicing not being affected by what other people
The
do
art of
around you.
detachment.
The art of detachment. And it's really challenging, especially when it's somebody you're close to or you have a long history with and they know your triggers and they use your triggers or whatever it may be. But yeah, I've had to work on that a lot in the last couple of years and I still work on it. But being in different situations, and now I've gotten to the point where I look at it as practice. It's like every interaction is an opportunity to practice that, because anybody at any time could come at you sideways with a comment that is triggering or that doesn't feel good or whatever. You don't do it as often as most, but
not as
Thankfully.
often, but I do it. Or think about it this way too: is we have this idea in our head on how we feel our friends. We want them to show up for us, and then when they're just being themselves and they don't show up for us in the way that we feel that they should, sometimes I used to allow that to disturb my peace.
Right.
I used to then get going, why are they a good friend to so-and-so but not to me? But that's my own bullshit, because I don't know if they're a better friend to so-and-so. I'm not around that. I'm assuming because they might be with those people in pictures or they might show up for those people in a different way. But again, it's still my issue. I get to decide what goes on here. I get to decide if I'm going to start thinking that way or not thinking that way. Right?
Yeah. And sometimes I even have to remove myself and detach myself to the point of looking at it, pretending like I'm over here. I'm almost like watching a play or a film or something play out, and really
Yes.
thinking about it as, Ashley, just consider yourself a character in this right now. Don't get upset by it. Just observe. Just be the observer. Don't be the reactor.
Mm-hmm.
Just be the observer. Just take it in and observe.
Makes
And
me so proud.
really,
Yeah,
oh,
because it's so important to be able to harness that skill of
it
going
ain't
outside of
easy.
yourself and being able to observe yourself. That
I'm not
takes some
saying I can
serious
do it all the
skill.
time. I'm saying I'm aware that I need to do that.
But I think that you're going to start to do it now that you're
Yeah.
aware of
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
pretty powerful. Good
I'm
on
a,
you.
Thank you. I'm already practicing, and I found that even like with travel recently and stuff, things would come up that didn't go my way, and I'd go, okay, all right, let's see how I need to just observe and roll with this and see what comes, or,
Yeah. And
especially if you hear it from somebody. Like I waited, I shit you not, almost 2 hours in line for a rental car when I went to New York. It was so crowded, and I was headed to wedding events, and I was just thinking, well, I can get upset about it. I can get upset with this lady. There's only 2 people up here, and they should be a lot more staffed, and she should be moving faster. And why isn't this one, doing more
mhm.
right now instead of just playing on her computer? I don't know. There's all sorts of things that can go through your mind. People were getting angry and upset. But when I got to the front, I was like, okay, Ashley, here's a perfect example of how you need to put this into practice. So I got to the counter, and she said, hey, I'm so sorry, and I said, how are you? I said, it's really busy in here. Are you okay? And she goes, you're the only person that's asked me that. Thank you.
I
And she
love
said, I'm
that.
actually really nervous because, COVID's going back around again. There's a lot of people in here, trapped in here right now. And I said, would you like a mask? I have an extra mask. And she said, really? And I gave her a mask. And it was like those little interactions just, I don't know, they just fill your heart up so much differently if you just take a moment to be kind. I'm not saying I always do it, y'all. I certainly have slips. Y'all know it. Those of you that know me know it. But I don't know. I'm trying to get better at
Well,
those little
you gave
things,
yourself an opportunity to show up different. And if it wasn't for you getting perspective, being able to look from the outside
Yes.
in, you could have ganged up on her like everybody else in that room. But at the end of the day, where does that get us? It makes her feel like shit because we
Yeah.
want to blame somebody that we're in this
Right.
situation that we're in. Life happens. And so the fact is that you don't know the kind of day that that girl was having, and you could have been the catalyst to save her job or her moment or her whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so that for me is so much more powerful to want to be able to control my part in it. And it's not like I'm controlling my emotions all the time, but eventually what will happen is it just becomes automatic and you won't have
Right.
to look from the outside in, and you will have different perspective. But doesn't that make you feel better as a person when you walk away from that situation?
Of course it does. And what I realize is that it's coming back to me too. Like, remember last episode I talked about the woman on the train who gave me her sweater?
Oh, uh-huh.
It's like I've started noticing now. So, we've talked about this many times on the podcast of the energy of things, and what you put out comes back to you. Maybe not from that person necessarily, from somebody else. Y'all, I am
Mm-hmm.
feeling that. I am feeling it. I'm feeling it. I'm experiencing it for the first time, I feel like, since I've really been putting this into practice, as to just like taking a
Mm-hmm.
step back, release that, look at it outside yourself. This is where our tools come into practice of, I'm so
Yes.
grateful I'm in New York. I'm so grateful I have the means to rent a car to drive
Yes.
to my friend's wedding. I'm so grateful, all the things. You can think of 100 things of why you can be grateful at any given moment if you're alive and breathing, and. So
Mm-hmm.
anyway, that's kind of what I'm learning, is as I practice that more and more and more and more, as I have interactions with people throughout the day and let things go, I start finding that everybody that comes into my world is really kind to me. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
well, this didn't used to be the case, 6 or 7 years ago. I found that standing up for myself was a struggle, right? Like I always came to the party with my defenses ready and ready
Mm-hmm.
to defend my case because I just knew there was going to be a need to. I don't feel
Mm-hmm.
that way anymore. I
Oh,
just
that's
don't.
such a good feeling.
Thank you, Coach
It
Dena, for
really,
all of your
you're
help over the
welcome.
years.
Thank you. But
Really.
it is such a great, it is such a great space to get to, because instead of having things be black or white, you're allowing
Mm-hmm.
yourself to see them through a prism. So
Mm-hmm.
really, if we all think about it, not to get all woo woo,
Do it.
but I'm gonna ride in on my broomstick,
Do
and if
it.
we all think about it, every perspective is different if you allow yourself to see it from a different perspective and not a black and white perspective, right?
Yeah.
And so I
That's
don't know
hard
someone's
sometimes.
history, and of it's so
Mm-hmm.
hard, and it's so
Mm-hmm.
hard not to be toxic positive,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and it's so hard not to do all of these other things. But when it starts to become second nature, you start to learn to, I like to call
Mm-hmm.
myself Teflon Don, to
Yeah.
just let it slide. And now that I think about it, so I'm going to give you an experience of, I had an experience about a week ago. I went to a specialist, and I had a whole idea in my head of how it was going to turn out. And it didn't turn out the way I wanted it to,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But in that moment, I realized with all the work that I do that I was able to sort of go on the outside and look in, and thankfully I had a friend with me, and get different perspective going, you're not still that scared person who's in pain, afraid it's never going to go away. You're not still that person who gives all the control to this one person.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know your body, you know your stuff, you know. When an appointment like that would have broke me before, because
Yeah.
I had a lot riding on it,
Mm-hmm.
but I was very present, and I was very aware, and I was very sure. I made a concerted effort to go, everything isn't riding on this appointment. This isn't the end all be all. It's just one other person's perspective, but you need to show up for you in this moment.
Right.
And so when he was talking in a certain way or being disrespectful, I stuck up for myself in a way where, when before I would allow myself to become a victim of the circumstance,
Good.
now I was not the victim of the
Mm-hmm.
circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
I realized that just because he's the doctor doesn't mean he knows everything, and he
Right.
doesn't know what it's like to be in my body,
Right.
right?
Right.
And
Right. Right.
so by protecting my peace in that way, I didn't come home broken. I came home a little defeated, but my recovery was much quicker.
That's good.
And thank you. And so I'm also learning with that is, I used to put so much into one appointment, one person,
Mm-hmm.
one thing, and I know that that's not fair to them, and that's not fair to me either.
Right.
And that's also a way of protecting your peace, in the way as, if you put too much on one thing, it's never going to be peaceful, never going to work out that way, because that's not the way life is.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
so if you allow yourself to go, yeah, you know what, shit happens. Thank God I'm not in a rush. Thank God I don't have to be anywhere.
Exactly.
Thank God there are cars available, right?
Right.
And so
Exactly. That's what I was thinking
yesterday,
too. Look at all these people.
right?
Somebody might not get a car.
Totally. And so then when I went to the pharmacy after the doctor's appointment, all the meds and everything, when I was in the States, I would be like, and then on top of everything else, I have to buy more meds, and I don't know if they're even going to work. But they were €2.50. And I was so grateful for that. And I was just like, thank you, universe, because financially, on top of everything else, that is always a big concern, right? And
right.
so my peace is in the sense of, everything I have is already within me. I get to decide how I'm going to react to something. Not all the time, right? But when you're doing the work and protecting your peace is your end goal, you start showing up for yourself in ways that you never have, like you talking to yourself going, look at the cars, like thankfully there is a car to rent and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's how
Mm-hmm.
you show up for yourself.
Yeah.
I'm
And
no
you
longer
start to
looking
trust
for, yes,
that it's always going to work out, because it always does.
it
When you start to
always
feel that
does.
the universe has your back after you go through enough of these situations, it starts to literally become a trust in something greater. And that's a really cool thing to feel too, that I've
Yes.
never really fully experienced before until recently. Sorry, I didn't mean
And
to
so
cut you
then,
off.
no, it's okay. And so then, I guess when you're in family situations, I don't know if this has happened to you, and because so when you're in a family situation or a dynamic, and you find your peace getting disrupted, have you learned new tools to do for yourself to make sure that you don't let
Yes.
your peace? Okay, great. So can you share some of those?
I stop responding. If somebody says something that maybe is a little, I'll just kind of go, okay, whatever. It's not worth getting all worked up about. This is this person's thing. This is how they've always operated or whatever it is. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I don't have that many of them that come up, I would say, now around family. I've gotten better at that.
Mm-hmm.
But
Or friends or whatever it is. Like
well,
I've just learned that, like you, I don't say anything. And
mhm.
like if I'm at lunch
Right.
and I was at my mother-in-law's and my ex was there because I like for him to see the dogs, and he will pick and pick and pick and pick. And now
Mhm.
I just look at his mom and I wink,
Yep.
and I'm like, Vubba. And
And
then we
everybody
both will kind of
knows.
giggle
You don't have to
together. Of
defend
course.
yourself. Everybody knows
Yeah.
he's being a douche.
Yes, totally. And so
Same
I've
same
just
thing.
learned, I'm like, the only thing that's changed in this whole situation is me.
Right. And to
And
that
so,
point, I was going to say the other thing in regards to protecting your peace that I wanted to talk about, not just reacting, but
yes.
let's talk about the conversation in your head that you carry and the way you repeat situations out of your mouth. When we as humans, we like our conquering stories. We like our, and I went through this, and I don't know
Hmm.
what that is, but it is just something that we enjoy sharing with people of like, look how hard this situation was, and I went through it.
Oh,
I
yeah.
find that I am less and less inclined the more work I do to want to repeat all of that stuff too, because then
Hmm.
you're reliving the energy again. Then you're perpetuating it. Then you're putting it out to someone else. Then it's, you know
And
what
then
I
you're
mean?
bringing yourself right
You're
back to
bringing
that
yourself
situation that you're
right.
supposedly rid
Right,
of.
right. And not that you can't
Hmm.
share things with people, but I do believe that just like you said, when we talked about that doctor's appointment you went to, you're like, I'm going to allow myself to be upset and by midnight I'm going to be done. And I love
Yes.
that. It's like,
Hmm.
if you need to get it out, absolutely talk and get it out. If it's something, I'm not
Hmm.
saying don't share your trauma and try to work through it. I'm saying if there's little annoyances that happen throughout the day that could easily, I could have gotten to that wedding and been like, y'all, you won't believe what I went through, and this person, this, I
Hmm.
couldn't believe, da 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 da. Why would I do that? I'm going
Yeah,
to a
about the
joyous
car
occasion.
situation. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm saying just let it go, participate,
Hmm.
stay present. I
I
find
think
I find
some
helps me protect my peace too because then I let it go faster. You know what I
Totally,
mean?
totally. And I think you're that is so it's you're onto something in the sense is that I think it's also out of habit. Like we
Totally.
habitually we want something to add to the conversation or we want
Yes.
something to
To
rebuttal with, and
connect.
if we don't feel like we have enough going on in our lives, then someone's like, "Oh, well, I went through that too," and blah 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 blah, blah. And it's like, "No, no, no, no." So like when I was done with that doctor's appointment, I had literally allowed like the day, right? And then I set the time. And then how it so beautifully sealed for me was my dad was so cute. He was like, well, it's just one opinion and it's just one doctor and you can get other things. And I literally wrote back, Dad, I love you so much. Blood tests don't lie. I'm going to check my ego at the door. And I said, I'm going to try this for a certain amount of time. I would love to prove this doctor wrong. And meaning by, I hope
Yeah,
his
because he's a
medicine
dick.
stuff works, but yes, but I would
Yeah.
love to. But I'm putting my ego. And I
Mm-hmm.
said, so it's not something I'm willing to go back through of more MRIs,
Right.
more tests, more stuff. And so then he responds, okay, good night, unicorn. My dad's
Aw.
never called me
Oh,
that,
that's
which
so
is
sweet.
so sweet. And
That's so
but
sweet.
do you see how I turned it? And I
Mm-hmm.
could have
Mm-hmm.
very easily gone down that route where he was on my side, and
Yeah.
because I wanted support so badly,
Right.
I would have engaged in that before and became the victim of that circumstance.
Right. And it's like
But
you've talked about before is to like stop recruiting people into
yes,
your story because if it's only
yes.
a perpetuating something that doesn't make you feel good, why do we want to
Because
do
we want
that?
confirmation bias, because we
We
want to
do.
feel justified for, can you believe what a jerk he
Right.
was? And we want someone else
Right.
to go, yeah, you didn't deserve that. F
Right.
him,
But
And
at what
so,
point is that like an ego that just needs to be soothed? Or
for
is it
sure.
something that we can learn to just, I don't know. I've been
Well,
trying to
I think
figure that out.
it
But like,
is.
what part of me needs to tell this story and why?
And I think you're right.
You
Part of it
know?
is ego, and then part of it is, yeah, we are hurt. Now, we are not saying if someone's being abusive to you. We are saying
Right,
in a
exactly.
way
Please,
of
God.
everyday stuff
Just
where we
annoyances.
make things, and then
Right,
we go home and complain about all of that to get confirmation bias. And then
right.
what happens is when we recruit people, then those people pile onto top of
Mm-hmm,
ours.
mm-hmm.
Or if they don't respond in the way that we want them to, now we're pissed at
Now
them,
it's really a shitstorm.
right?
Exactly. Yes.
And so by protecting your peace in that way, you're really withholding that kind of information for yourself.
Exactly. And it
And
can
that's
also
what we
go
have to
with
remember.
and it can also be the same with maybe something you're really excited about. You have to
Mm-hmm.
learn which people to share with because
Oh,
there are certain
yes.
people who will squash it like a bug, or if in the case of someone in my life that I love dearly always wants to play the devil's advocate. And,
Oh,
that's just not fun to go and share
no.
exciting news with that person. I like to wait, see how things play out, and then maybe share with that
Yeah.
person. But maybe you got to do the same thing in your own life, of,
Well, I think you're right in the devil's advocate thing of it could really be a blow to everything you were feeling, and then it's just like
yeah,
wah, wah, wah.
right,
And then you don't know if you could have kept getting momentum if you didn't let someone discourage you, and then now you're completely approaching something from a completely different perspective, which took you out of the in sync that you were going for.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Well,
And I
yeah.
think that's important too.
And I think, especially as anyone who is really creative and in the
Mm-hmm.
arts, although we are all creators technically,
Mm-hmm.
if you're in a creative field, especially, it's like I'll wait a long time to share certain things with people because I don't want to hear any negative feedback. I don't want to hear the what's
Mm-hmm.
ifs, and all the things that could go wrong because that's going to squash my excitement about it. I have a vision for things. Dena and I have a vision for this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
We know it takes a little while to get there, but we have it
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to keep going. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why, sometimes we're careful with who we bring on and with the way we talk
Yes.
about it. But it's the same thing.
Oh, totally. And so I think it's also important because I think like you were saying about people don't want to lose connection. So sometimes if you feel like you're only around people who talk about negative stuff, maybe you should think about that connection.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And are you aligned with people who have the same sort of, end goal in
Right.
mind? And I'm not saying everyone has to be like that. And I don't deter people from sharing their truth and their stories. I just don't hold it in. I'm not one who can do small talk very well. And so
Who you?
yeah, no, I can't do. I do really deep shit, and I do really deep. As y'all notice,
Mhm.
I get a little deep, but I think that it's not who I am. I'm
Mhm.
not superficial in that way. I'm
Meaning, if someone
superficial in the
shares something exciting with you, you don't want to talk about it if you don't feel good about
oh
it?
no
What do
no
you mean by that?
I'm talking about meaning to not just okay. So when we're avoiding talking about maybe negative things that happen, and then I don't have a lot going on in my life. Sometimes out of default, if I don't feel like I have a lot going on, I used to be guilty of then maybe sharing the negative thing or the thing that I
Mm-hmm,
wanted to
mm-hmm.
hold on to because I didn't want people to poo poo the idea. And then I wind up
Right.
sharing it with the one person that I knew was going to react the way they did. And now I'm pissed at myself that I
Right.
shared it. Right. And
Yeah.
so then what do you do when you're not a small talk person? There isn't a ton going on in your life at the moment and you are around people. So
Mm-hmm,
then
mm-hmm.
I will tend to get a little more quiet. But then when I'm quiet, everyone's like, what's wrong with you? Are you okay? I'm like, no, I'm fine. But it's so there is a balance of finding that stuff out until it just becomes second nature of who you are.
Right. Right.
And I think that that's important for people to not feel like it just happens overnight. It takes
Mm-hmm.
practice. And it
Mm-hmm.
also
Mm-hmm.
takes practice in the people that we're around the most.
Right.
And I'll never forget when I first started therapy, I was really bad at well, doctor, so and so said, well, Dr. So and so said, and then people would be like, I could give two shits with Dr. So and so, and they would get so mad at me, right? And then, so then I learned to like keep quiet. And then I used to think people were telling me things because they wanted my opinion. And then I realized now that those, for me, that was all social cue things, right? But now that I don't, I now am finding out where I fit in all of this. Like, what is organically me, showing up for myself, protecting my peace. And so that's where I always go to humor. And I always go to playfulness. I know not everything can always be about that, but sometimes for me, that's now my default.
Yeah, yeah. And that makes sense.
You know?
Of course. Yeah. But it's like, for me, it's not just people who are close to me. Like, those are the people I kind of know how to set myself up, and I know that I'm going to have to be ready to deflect this one if I tell them something. It's the new people or the people I haven't seen in a long time, like case in point, you know, I was just around a lot of people I haven't seen in a few years, and some of them I haven't seen in many years, and they were at this wedding, and I, you know.
And they're looking for the old Ashley.
No, not necessarily. They're just like,
okay,
what are you doing? What's going on? And I kind of have a minute of like, can I tell this person about the podcast? Because I know this doesn't resonate with everyone. I think that what we have to say is very important for people who are open to hearing it. I think that a lot of people are like, meh. Also, so I always find that I want to be careful because I don't want someone to discourage me, of course, on our path. And thankfully, I talked to some very lovely, very interested people who were just like, that sounds amazing. Tell me about that. And where did y'all meet? And how did you get to this? This is incredible. And you want to do what with it? And y'all are going to, oh my God. Like, I got some real, genuine excitement from some people. And that was really refreshing. That was really, really lovely to hear. And it got me all excited again for us.
Right.
So
I love that.
yay,
And
yeah.
I think my fear also too is the longer I stay away from friends and family, because it's been over 3 years since I've been home, the more trepidatious I am to seeing certain people, not all people, of course, but because I am so different now that I think some people, because they haven't seen me do the work, think it's an act. Or they may go, oh, please, Dena, I know you. I've known you forever. Like,
Right.
or don't be like this. And then they minimize who I am now. And then I find that I will get butthurt and then just completely shut down, right? So
Of course.
it's not that I don't want to see those people again. Is that I wish that we would all learn that people, not everyone, but lots of people do change, and they can change quickly, and they can change very differently. And so I think when we're looking and meeting people that we haven't seen in a while, it's important to hold space for the idea that they're not going to be the same.
Well, what I was about to say is what I experienced was I had a little bit of that concern going in of like, I wonder what I'm going to walk into and what they're going to expect, because old Ashley would have been out there partying her face off. Guess what? Those people have changed a bit too, and they've grown since I've seen them too. So it was really cool to see some of these people that have also done some work and how we come together now differently. So I really enjoyed that. And some of them, of course, are pretty much the same as where, I left them, but some of them, it was just really fascinating.
Well,
and
tell
really
me
cool.
the feeling that you get when you're around a group of old friends like that, and you get to walk away sober. Do you feel like you showed up for yourself and you protected your peace in that way? I'm so glad that I'm able to stick to my lifestyle the way it is now.
Absolutely. And the cool thing was 2 of those people in that group also are now sober,
Oh, that's
and
amazing.
also are doing work on themselves. And we talked about it. We're like, God, if this was us 5 years ago, we'd have been out there,
Yeah.
But no, it was a very different experience, and it was
So
very
do you
cool
see
to
the
see.
fodder in our head isn't always
Yes.
true,
Right.
because when we show up in a different way, sometimes
Yeah.
people receive us in a different way. And
Yeah.
we assume, not meaning you and I, but just in general, sometimes we assume the worst in people because that's been our experience in the past.
Or just
And
not even worst, but just, maybe they are still where we remembered them being, right?
Exactly. There you go.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
And I think that that's important too, is to allow that kind of space, right? And so I guess I'm always afraid of, when people go, oh, come on, just have one drink, or oh, come
Mm-hmm.
on, just do this, or oh, come on. I find that people of my age now don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
So my
Right.
brain is thinking
No.
of, when I was
Nobody
in my
pressured
40s,
me.
not in, yeah, that's
Nobody.
lovely.
But if they do, like I am out sometimes, usually with like the single lesbians group here, and they'll all be like, "Oh, you don't drink? You don't want a something?" And I'll go, "Fine. Can I have a non-alcoholic beer, please?" and,
That's amazing.
and
Good for you.
it's like whatever. I'll have a non-alcoholic beer. But
Yeah.
most of the time, I don't even care. It's like just bring me a water. I'm good. But
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I'm past that now, and I know the difference of how I feel later. And I know that
Mm-hmm.
who I want to attract, I want to show that I can show up for myself in this way.
Yes.
So that's important to me as well, to be seen by my community as, oh, yeah, no, she actually can walk her
And
walk.
consistent.
Yeah. So,
You consistently show up for yourself. Is this the first
yes.
time in your life? Because this is the first time in my life I have consistently showed up for myself for the last 3 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I couldn't say that before. And
Huh.
when I say consistent, I mean, yes, there will be slips here and there, not with the alcohol or whatever,
Of
but
course.
around certain people who are abusive, or certain people that maybe they've led me to believe they've changed. And then, not that I fell for it, but I trusted in that, and then found out it was just circumstantial they changed, but not completely across the board. Or sometimes we outgrow people and then we feel guilty. So then we wind up not protecting our peace because we feel guilty that we've outgrown them, and we don't want to hurt their feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like then you'll surrender your peace for somebody else's feelings.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
another slippery slope that you have to be careful of. And I'm not saying don't
Sure.
show up or whatever. It's just, remember, Teflon. You can listen to people and you can have a conversation and keep it very light, but just don't share your deep stuff, right?
Well,
And
yeah, and
or
I think the more you get a little bit further along in your journey of being strong, let's say if you're stopping drinking or something like that, the easier it gets to be back around people because these folks add a lot of value to my life, and there are certain people that add a lot of value to my life, and they're big drinkers, and they're doing whatever they
mm-hmm,
do, and I still want to be around them, and I still want them for the beautiful other things that they bring into my life. So
mm-hmm.
I think that it's up to me to be okay to be in that situation and be around it when, not all the time, but now and then, because
Yeah.
they are lovely humans.
And I think what happens to us too is it can be a challenge to come to the, how do I say that word? Where it's like, come to the place where we realize we have to allow other people to be who they are
Uh-huh.
without taking offense that they
Right.
may disrupt our peace.
Right.
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 And
Right.
so it's like, just because I'm on this journey and you're not
Yes.
doesn't mean you're worse than I am. It
That's what
means
I
you're
was
just
trying to
taking a
say.
different journey. Do you know what I mean? And
Exactly.
so that's what I've learned about myself too, is that, so I did this thing the other day because I'm such a brat, is I
Uh-oh.
like doing this thing now to people because I think people too freely use, let's catch up, let's talk, let's do whatever. But because I'm literal, I'm like, okay, that means they really want to talk to me. So this person who I haven't seen in years, he goes, hey D, I really miss you, let's catch up. I go, great, let's do a video chat. And he goes, okay, I'm doing this tomorrow, but I'll call you the next day. And it's been over like 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, it's funny, I'm laughing now, but before I used to get hurt. And I
Mm-hmm.
get it, but I'm just, it's not like I'm trying to teach people a lesson, but be careful also what you just casually throw out there,
Right.
because you don't know if people are hanging on to your words and they
Yeah.
really do want you to catch up. And
Right.
so don't say, oh yeah, I really want to see you. It's okay to say, instead of how are you, it's so nice to see you.
Exactly.
And instead of, like, don't invest and don't bullshit people.
Yeah.
Like, and I have to do my part in that too.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying stuff to people anymore that I don't mean, because also if I don't want to get into depths with you and we're on different ways, then why would I tell you that?
Right, right.
So
Yeah,
I also
I
have to
get it.
protect my peace that way as well.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yes.
get myself sometimes into that shit, so I'm going to have to be the one that takes myself out of that, right?
Right. Yes. And I think, I mean,
And
I think I'm okay with not throwing things out like that with people that I don't intend to follow up with.
mhm.
It's harder
Mhm.
when it's someone in front of me. Like if you said it to me and I'm in
Mhm.
front of you, I'd be like, okay,
Oh yeah.
because you don't want to hurt somebody's feelings, and then just have the fucking
Maybe
phone
you could say,
conversation, whatever.
you
It's
could
what does
say,
it
I'll
hurt
let
you?
you know. I'll let you know instead of saying,
Yeah.
okay, we'll be in
Or I say okay,
touch.
and then I actually just do the phone call, because how hard is it?
Okay.
I have had people come and find me, especially after the podcast and stuff too, of like, hey, let's catch up and blah, blah, blah. And okay, fine. I would genuinely like to hear how these people are doing, and who
Mhm.
cares? It's 30 minutes of your life or whatever.
Yes.
Um, if you can do it. So I don't know.
Well, and I
But I
think
see
I
what you're
don't want,
saying.
yeah, and I don't want people to get confused about protecting your peace means you isolate yourself. Protecting your peace means you
Right.
cut people
That's
off.
right.
Protecting your peace means you have to cut people out. That's not what that means. What
I
it
agree.
means is you start showing up for yourself
Mm-hmm.
and you very cautiously in the beginning allow things to affect you or don't allow things to affect you. Start out getting your toe wet. Start out by saying, okay, does this serve me? Is this the direction I want to go? Can it feel lonely in this period? Absolutely, but I can promise a lot of you that it was probably just as lonely when you were surrounded by a bunch of people who weren't fulfilling the things that you wanted or needed.
I agree with that
I'm a lot less
1,000%.
lonely now being alone than I was in the relationship that I was lonely in,
Right, right. That's the worst
right?
feeling in the
It's the
world is
worst.
being with someone and then still feeling lonely in the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
No, thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah, I've
Mm-mm.
been there too, Dina, and I would far rather be sitting where I am right now
Well, yeah,
and being
because
able to choose what I allow in, right?
mm-hmm. Yes. And sometimes protecting your peace means that, and we all know it, and I don't want you to deny it. We have known that there are certain people at some point that we are going to have to disconnect with in our life, but we
Right.
keep holding off the inevitable.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we go, yeah,
Agreed.
but it's not a good
Agreed.
time. Yeah, but they're going through something
Right.
hard. Yeah, but. So wait, the yeah, but is putting your peace on hold
Right.
because you're afraid of hurting their feelings. Are they
Right.
afraid of hurting your feelings?
Right. Exactly.
Right? And so
Exactly.
you have to
That's the part
learn
we
that.
always forget.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But
It's
we're
like what,
taught be a good girl, be a good boy, have manners, don't be disrespectful. So it's
right.
kind of like untraining your brain.
Totally. Totally. Yeah.
You know? What about when people start giving you unsolicited advice?
Oh boy. Yeah, that's
How
a
do
good
you
one.
handle that? Everyone always has, listen, and not to be a jerk because I'm grateful for some people or whatever. The reason why I withhold a lot of stuff from a lot of people is it's not that I don't want your advice. It's that most
Is
likely
it?
I've tried 99 of the things that somebody's going to suggest.
Right.
So if it
Right.
comes to do with
Agreed.
medical, have you tried blah, blah, blah?
Yeah.
Dude, that's RA 101.
Right.
Like, that's the first thing I tried, right? And then
Right.
I find myself getting annoyed, but I know they're just trying to help.
Yeah.
But what I've also learned now is just because I'm a coach or I do intuitive work doesn't mean everyone always wants my advice. So I've had to
Right.
learn to back the truck up and just be
Me
like,
too.
unless someone asks for your opinion, do
Right.
not give it to them.
Right.
Because some
Right.
people have put me in my place.
Yeah. Yeah. Same.
And
Same.
yeah.
And rightfully so. I deserved it.
Totally. I agree. And I'm like, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
And especially now that I'm not drinking, it's easier to not do that. But then sometimes it just
Right.
comes from a helpful place. And it just comes
Exactly.
from a place of wanting the best for someone. And I understand. So that's why I've learned to withhold things because I'm protecting you and me.
Right. Right. Agreed.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think that we all want so much to form connection that we will blurt everything out to be like, yeah, I want you to see. And then when we don't get the response we want, then we become upset, irritated, or whatever. And it's like, well, were you really trying to protect your peace, or were you trying to get somebody to see your side of something?
Right.
Because when you're sharing something, not everyone's always going to get your perspective.
Agreed. Yeah.
And so
exactly.
I think that that's the risk people take with sharing things. And so protecting your peace is an inside job.
The other thing I was thinking about too is, and this is something that came up for me the other day that I would love your opinion on, animals and abuse. And what I mean by that is, here we live in Charleston, and somebody posted a couple days ago about the horses having to pull the carriage in the 90 plus degree heat, 18 people in these carriages. And there I went of like, this is just an example. It could be human rights. There's so many refugees right now being, mistreated. And there's so many stories if you look around. Going into those rabbit holes or speaking up or doing something, we've talked about this before, but it was another one of those situations of like, God, I really want to, go out there right now and go scream at one of those carriage drivers, or if I'm in my car and I pass one of them on the street, it is so hard for me to not roll down the window and like shout at them like, you're an asshole. So is protecting my peace in that sense where I'm withholding, I don't feel like that's a productive good. I feel like that would make me feel better maybe for a second in the moment. Maybe it would shock all those people. Maybe it would shock the driver into thinking differently. Maybe it would just piss them off and make them, stand their ground more.
But you're assuming they care.
Exactly.
And you're assuming
that's what I'm saying.
They have that same mentality, right? So you're not protecting your peace because if somebody's doing that, it's obvious that they don't feel the same way you do about animals. Now, we could argue from the other end of the prism of they're just trying to make a living. Maybe they're ignorant. Maybe they don't think horses have feelings. Then we're like, how can you not think? And there are people actually out there that literally go, it's just a horse. It's just a dog. It's just, why do people treat their animals better than they treat? No, I get
years
it.
ago, I did those carriage rides. I just didn't think about it either.
Exactly.
And then you wake up
because
to it.
You're where you're at, right?
Yes.
And you didn't get there overnight. So how you protect your peace is instead of yelling at someone or doing something like that is, are you a member of these groups that help, do things to stop it? Are you a part of that? So you're doing everything you can, and maybe go bring the horse water. Maybe go show the guy that you have compassion for the animals. Maybe, bring a wet cloth and rub down their face if they
won't let you touch them.
Okay, so
it's so
but
annoying.
Either way, and I get where you're coming from because it's like watching a parent smack their kid in a store. It is so hard for me not to go, are you? Right? No, but it's hard for me because I was that kid growing up getting smacked, and I was pissed no one protected me.
Right. I used to scream child abuse. Did you do that?
No, I would have gotten
If my mom, she had this, like, she'd pinch the back of your arm right there and twist it. Oh, man, that hurt. And I would always yell, child abuse!
Oh, that
didn't do anything,
actually. But... Well, right? And so I think what you're saying is it is a hard one, but then again, if we allowed every horrific thing we saw in this world to disturb our peace, we would all be a nervous wreck and nothing would ever get done.
Yes, but that's what I'm saying is those situations are hard. When you see something happening and you think instantly, is there something I can do right now? Legally? And, that would truly cause positive change. But if there's not, it's just, it sucks that you have to just sit in it and accept it and allow it to happen and move on about it.
And we don't want to become desensitized from it. And we don't want to. And so you can't sit. But again, we have to put a time limit on it. You show me a seal online. One time there was this seal that jumped up, was hiding from the whale eating it or the shark eating it. And I still worry about that seal. Literally, my sweet little brain. I can't stop thinking about that sweet little seal because you had to go back down there again. And if it wasn't that shark,
the one I told you about? Is that what I was telling you about the other night? whatever the Earth Planet, whatever that documentary series is it's on that's so beautifully shot. Can't watch
No,
it
it wasn't that.
because of
I
that.
know.
The seals
And
running
their
from the polar
sweet little
bears like
eyes.
disturbed me.
I get that. And then
Anyway,
that's why I
sorry
can't
y'all.
watch those shows.
I
Those
can't
shows disrupt my
either.
peace.
I want to watch the beautiful animals in their environment, but without
Hmm.
fail, every single one of those damn shows show, them being attacked and killed in front of your
Hmm.
face. And it's like, oh, I can't.
And then people are like, but that's nature. Well, that's that. Well, that's not the nature I need to see. I don't
Yeah,
need to see the
exactly.
reality of everything all the time. I need to
Yeah.
protect my peace.
Oh my God, it's crazy. But
Right? And so
yeah, it's
it
like
can
consuming
be.
content is getting more and more challenging too, as far as protecting our peace. Speaking of that, right? It's like you and I have these conversations all the time, and it's like when you find something
Hmm.
that's great and uplifting, inspiring, you always share it with me. Thank you.
Hmm.
I try to do the
Yes,
same, but it's like,
yes.
man, it's getting fewer and farther between that I'm finding stuff that's really great, really compelling, and doesn't take me to a dark place.
Well, and then I also heard this guy
Ah.
say online he has one of those incredible memories that I don't know if it's a gift or a curse where he remembers every date, everything, what happened on, those people that can
Mm-hmm.
remember.
Like a
So
photographic
he's
memory
like,
almost.
yes, and it's like in 1973, this happened, that happened, like that kind of thing. And so he said, when you have a brain like this, you are much more careful about what you consume if your brain is always going to remember it.
Ooh,
So
yeah.
I took
Yeah.
that and I
Yeah.
applied it to my life because
That makes
we don't
sense.
know what our brain is going to hold on to when we consume
Mm-hmm.
it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so there are things that will touch us or curse us where
Mm-hmm.
it's like, no, thank you, or oh my. So I am very careful about what I consume now. And
Mm-hmm.
because I do realize that much more things disrupt my peace than I was aware of.
Right.
And I
Right.
think that's just getting in touch with who you are and where you're at now because it will always change and
Yep.
it will always be something different. Like right now for me, it is such a interesting thing that the world is just moving in a way with all of these horrible things that are happening, the gun violence, the thing, and I'm like, how are people just functioning? And I'm
Right.
like, well, I guess
So
they
hard.
always did, but because it was never on my radar
Mm.
when I was younger as a kid, that it's more on my radar now, and then
Right.
I'm preoccupied and I don't have peace all the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying everyone can, but I would hope that the goal is that, it's like we can keep going forward, do our passions, contribute, like my therapist had said, and it's always true, is volunteering is our duty as citizens of the world, or giving time is your duty as citizen. Like, do your part, volunteer for your goals, do the things that matter, that are important, coming together as a community, and that's the best you can do. But by consuming, knowing what's going on in the world, you are disturbing your peace because now you're completely distracted by all of this fear and all of this angst, and it's nothing that you can control.
Right. So do what you can with what you have with where you are and
Exactly.
let the rest go.
There
Right.
you go. That's
So,
amazing.
yeah. So, to that point, let's also
Hmm.
talk about maintaining your peace and protecting your peace when it comes to somebody close to you, or a family member, or a best friend, or whatever, who is constantly, you feel, needing of your attention, needing of your help, needing
Hmm.
of, let's say they're going through a tough time and you want to help. I have found in the past that I can get all consumed in those situations, especially if it's someone I'm in a romantic relationship with or
Hmm.
whatnot.
And then you become invested in the outcome.
Well, and then what happens to your peace?
Exactly.
So I was listening to, I love Abraham Hicks. I was listening the other night, and she said something to the point of, we are all here on our specific journeys, like we were just
Uh-huh.
talking about. Everybody has their own journey. A lot of people may think that by leaving their path and jumping over here and sacrificing their time to fully invest and help this other person, that is compassion. She said, no, the highest form of compassion that you can have for another human is to stay on your path and only give to them what you can still stay healthy and focused and on your path and maintain your peace and still help over here, because you have to. You're on this
Well,
journey
you
too,
have
and
to, and
and
it's
then
also,
you're a healthy example. If you go down with the ship too, it's like, what good is that?
well, and then it was when we were talking in the beginning, right? It's the internal dialogue that you have to fix
Mm-hmm.
inside of you that taught you of you're being selfish if you don't show up for your
That's
friend,
right.
or if you don't listen to them, or if you don't. So it really is again an inside job,
Right.
meaning that it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to tell that person you can't show up for them.
No.
You just start showing up in a different way,
Of
and
course.
hopefully they get it, right? And
Yeah.
hopefully if they don't get it the first time, they'll get it the second time, and maybe the third time, or whatever it may be. But I used to take things so personal, and it used to cause me so much pain internally. And because I was taught if someone cared, they would show up for you. If someone
Right.
was this, they would show up for you. Blah, blah, blah. And then so then I would take all of those literal sayings and then apply them to me, and then compare them to how people were showing up for me. And so then I was
Exactly. And then you think, well, they don't
literally,
care for me because they're not dropping
mhm,
everything in their life to do X,
yes.
Y, Z.
So
No, they
you got to
shouldn't
change
drop
your inner
everything in your
dialogue.
life.
Yes.
Right. And I used to be guilty of dating those people that I needed to fix. And I didn't recognize that. But my friends would point it out to me, like, stop dating people you need to fix, or that, and I didn't get it for a long time. And it's so
But
much
maybe it
nicer to
made
be on
you
this side
feel
of it.
good to help
Well,
people.
I was
And then it's
codependent.
also, well, yeah, and it's a distraction from your own life and helping
Yeah.
yourself.
I was totally codependent. It made me
Hmm.
feel good to think that I was doing something good for somebody else. But what I didn't recognize was I wasn't being good to myself. And you
Yeah,
can't be
it was
good to
at the
someone
cost
else
of
and
yourself.
abandon yourself,
Hmm.
because how does that keep you healthy? No.
Hmm.
So it's been an interesting balance to try to learn, trying to do both, and being strong enough to say no sometimes to people who ask me to do things that I don't want to do, that I know
Yeah.
aren't in my wheelhouse.
So, how does showing up for yourself now look like for you?
It means having, well, and I'll tell you this, it means having boundaries in place, right?
Okay.
And to me now, having boundaries allows me to love more fully with certain people because, and I know that sounds weird because you think, well, aren't boundaries like putting up a wall? No, it's just being clear with people. It's being
Mm-hmm.
brave enough to be clear with people about, you know what? No, I really don't want to do that tonight, and but maybe I would do this with you, or I don't, whatever it is. Just,
Well,
man, it took me a
and
long time to be brave enough to communicate certain things because I was so afraid of hurting people's feelings. I was so
yes.
worried that people wouldn't look at me as being kind or going with the flow or being the good girl or whatever, that now I'd rather just be honest, because now they can take that information, and if they choose to push me away for it, okay, well, there's an answer too. But if they choose to then respond in a way that I didn't expect and say, oh, all right, well, I won't ask you to do that anymore. I'll call you when we want to do this. Great.
Yeah,
Now
that's
we can
amazing.
form a different type of relationship, right?
And well, and also trusting yourself enough to know that you're no longer going to abandon yourself.
Right, right. And then it makes it
That's
easier for me to walk into social situations or whatever because I know I've got my own back.
there you go.
Yeah.
Yes,
And so if
great.
people and so if somebody does need help, I'm not going to get pulled down with them. I'm going to offer
Mm-hmm.
my help, and then I'm going to say, "You know what? This is what I can do." Or I want to be one of the people that helps you, but not the only person that helps you. You
Mm-hmm.
know?
And I'm
Something to that
also
effect.
going to learn that when people can't help me, I'm learning that it has nothing to do with me. It may be them protecting their peace.
Right. Exactly.
Hmm. See,
Isn't
we're
growing up
learning. We're
interesting?
doing. It's so interesting. It's doing the work is so gratifying and
It
so
is.
rewarding, and it's not easy. It's not for the faint of heart, but when you do it and you stay consistent, you start showing up for yourself, your life will start to change in ways that you never knew it could.
Yes, it does. Amen to that, sister.
Hmm.
And
You could have said a yes, Kawane.
yes, Kawane.
Thank you. Such a dick.
Well, you've already got the necklace on. I know you're.
How Can you read
Where's
it?
your tiara
I was waiting
today?
for you to
Oh, yeah.
notice.
Oh,
Well,
yeah, no, I
it's in the
saw it.
bathroom, but I could go
I'm
get
surprised
it
you
if
didn't
you
wear
want.
the tiara.
No. Well, with matchy, I thought it would be too much.
Oh my God, y'all. But this is what, y'all, this is an example of the idiocy I talk about. Like, this is the type of stuff that, Dena and I feel like it is important to put out. I mean, I think it's great and important for us to have stuff like this where we can talk about deep subjects on the podcast and get through this. And then y'all, please join us over at the cafe if you want to. Yes, it's recipes. Maybe you don't care about watching a 15-minute cooking video, but I'm telling you, it's more of a show.
It's a cooking show, yes,
It's
and
a
it's very
show.
funny and entertaining.
It's
You
ridiculous.
are hilarious.
Why, thank you. And I'm sorry. I know I
I'm
do
just in
dig
my
at you a
own
little
world.
bit, but
It's
yes,
okay.
you are. And
I'm
it's
in
so
my
funny.
own world, so
It's so funny.
But that's what it's like inside my brain all the time.
And
so,
I get such a giggle, seriously, out of like seeing what you are going to do each week, because I'm like, what is she doing? And then I can't help it. There's always something that I can grab onto in every video. And there's always something, Dena's got that little gift, y'all, of intuition. And she calls me out on my shit before I even do the thing. It's like she'll have recorded these videos 2 weeks ago. And then it'll come time for me to shoot mine. And she's calling me out on something that happens. And I'm like, what the heck, man? How did you know I can't cut an avocado?
It's called foresight.
It's hilarious. But anyway, I hope that y'all will join us there too. And a reminder to
give
subscribe.
us a like and a follow. Yes.
Yeah, share this with your friends.
Please,
you'll see, you'll start to see more content that we're going to put out that's more helpful. Dena and I have talked about doing things like maybe showing you products that we've been using in our everyday life that we didn't think about twice, that we need to maybe replace, and here's why. So we'll start doing little short form content around that. Anyway, we're just going to start to bring more things to the table. Yes. So
yay.
Look forward
and
to
if
that
you have
as
any
well.
subjects that you would like us to tackle for you and become a part of the conversation, that would be fun too.
Please, 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 please. Yes. Comment below. Let us know what you want to hear about. We're open to your topics. Dena and I are just kind of pulling things out of our asses here. So, well, I shouldn't say that for you. You're using your beautiful intuition for some of it. But some of it, I'm just like...
Sometimes I pull shit. Yes.
Yeah.
I pull shit and I'm like, oh, well, okay then.
But thank y'all. Thank y'all for being here.
Yes, thank you. And I guess I'm going to say,
yes. See you next time, y'all.
See you next time.
Bye.
Ciao.
Join us here each week as we unpack life in the new normal with a new hashtag Subtle Change Profound Impact from Coach Dena. To get a little daily inspirational message in your social feed, follow us on YouTube Shorts, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. Copyright 2020 Angel Baby Films, all rights reserved. For entertainment purposes only.